Welcome to the Deep Dive. We unpack complex info to give you clear, actionable insights. Today, we're diving deep into a challenge many adult males face, a really oily scalp. If you've ever felt your hair go from, freshly washed to grease ball in just hours, or if you're dealing with stubborn flakes and itching with the oil, then yeah, this deep dive is definitely for you. We've looked at a pretty comprehensive clinical guide on managing seborrhea and oily scalp, and our goal today is to pull out the most important bits, help you understand why it's happening, and crucially, how to actually take control.
Yeah, it's interesting because for so many people, managing an oily scalp feels like this constant battle, just fighting symptoms. But the real game changer isn't just about, which shampoo you happen to grab. It's really about understanding the biology, the complex stuff happening just beneath the surface, recognizing how your body works, and then building a strategic plan, something that goes beyond those quick fixes. So we're going to break down the science, try to cut through some of that contradictory advice you hear, and hopefully equip you with a more holistic approach to finally get that balanced, healthier scalp.
Okay, let's get into it. Our mission then is to shift things from just constantly fighting your oily scalp to, well, effectively managing it. And we'll start right at the source, biology. So the journey to understanding an oily scalp, it starts beneath the surface, right, with these tiny things called sebaceous glands. They're part of what's called the sebaceous unit. That includes your hair follicle too. And their job, basically, to produce sebum, that waxy, oily stuff.
Exactly. And sebum itself isn't bad. Actually, it's vital. It lubricates, it waterproofs your skin, keeps it hydrated, adds shine to your hair, all good things. The issue pops up when these glands get overactive, that's seborrhea, or just, oily scalp. And that excess oil, it can clog follicles, lead to inflammation, and sometimes even contribute to hair breakage, making hair look thinner.
Okay, so what makes them overactive? Especially for adult guys. This is where it gets interesting, I think. The biggest driver is hormones, specifically androgens, like testosterone, which explains why oiliness often kicks in during puberty, right? And then there's this derivative, dihydrotestosterone, DHT, which is apparently, 10 times stronger?
That's a really crucial point, because you might have totally normal testosterone levels circulating in your body, but still have a super oily scalp. And that's because the conversion of testosterone into that more potent DHT, it can happen locally, right there within the scalp's own sebaceous glands. There's an enzyme, 5-reductase, that drives this. So if you're genetically predisposed to having high activity of that specific enzyme in your scalp, you'll crank out extra sebum right there, regardless of your overall hormone picture and this local action. That's exactly why topical treatments can be so important.
Okay, so hormones are big, but not the whole story. You mentioned genetics playing a role too.
Absolutely. You might just inherit a tendency for larger glands or more numerous ones. If other people in your family have oily hair, well, chances are higher for you too.
And hair type makes a difference in how it lives. Right.
Spot on, yeah. If you've got fine or straight hair, that sebum just slides right down the shaft, makes it look greasy really fast. But with thick or curly hair, the oil can kind of get trapped up at the roots, so you end up with an oily scalp, but sometimes surprisingly dry ends. And another factor people don't always think about, humidity and heat. High heat can directly stimulate those glands to produce more oil, makes things feel greasier.
Got it. And one last key thing here before we move on, distinguish just simple oiliness from seborrheic dermatitis. That seems critical.
Hugely critical. Seborrhea is just the excess oil. Annoying, but just oil. Seborrheic dermatitis, that's inflammatory. You get the oil, PLUS, persistent itching, redness, and those stubborn flakes, often yellowish. And it's often linked to an overgrowth of a yeast that naturally lives on our skin called Melissetia. Knowing which one you're dealing with completely changes how you should treat it.
Okay, understanding the why is super helpful. But now for the big question. What do we do? Let's get into the practical stuff, starting with the hair care routine itself. This is where you hear that conflicting advice, right? Don't wash too much, you'll strip oils, versus, the dermatologist saying wash more often. What's the real deal?
Yeah, that paradox trips a lot of people up. But the key isn't just frequency, it's the type of product you use. The whole wash less to train your hair idea. Often that's just people recovering from using really harsh stripping shampoos in the first place. Those shampoos do cause rebound oiliness. But for genuinely overactive glands, washing daily or maybe every other day with a gentle pH-balanced, non-stripping shampoo, that's usually the best starting point. You're removing the buildup, not shocking your glands into overdrive.
Okay, gentle pH balance. So how do you actually wash effectively then? Any specific techniques?
Definitely. First, lukewarm water. Always. Hot water feels good, but it can strip oils too much and, yeah, stimulate that rebound production. And when you apply shampoo, really focus it on your scalp, not just laddering up the lengths of your hair. Gently massage it in with your fingertips. Helps emulsify the sebum, break it down.
And I've heard about this double shampoo technique for really oily scalps.
Yes, highly recommend it. It's a game changer for some. The first wash, think of it as breaking down the main layer of oil in any product you've used, the pre-wash, basically. The second wash then creates a much richer lather. And this is key. It lets any active ingredients in your shampoo actually make good contact with the scalp skin, maximizes their effect, and yeah, rinse really, really well. Residue is not your friend here.
Right, rinse thoroughly. Now, what about conditioner? A lot of guys with oily hair just skip it, thinking it'll make things worse.
Super common mistake. Conditioning is actually still essential for the health of the hair shaft itself. The trick is strategic application. Only apply it to the mid-lengths and ends of your hair. Keep it completely away from your scalp. Zero contact with the scalp skin. And choose wisely. Look for lightweight, maybe volumizing conditioners. Avoid anything with heavy oils or silicones that can weigh hair down and add to the greasy feeling.
Okay, strategy for conditioner. Makes sense. And after washing, does drying or styling matter? Like blow dryers.
They can, yeah. Really high heat from blow dryers might stimulate those glands a bit, so maybe use a lower heat setting or hold it further away. And heavy styling products like waxes or thick pomades, they can definitely trap sebum against the scalp, potentially clog follicles, so go for lighter options if you can.
So, with all that, how do you make that clean feeling last longer? Especially if you're washing every other day.
This is where dry shampoo becomes your best friend. But here's the pro tip. Use it proactively. Don't wait until your hair is already greasy. Apply just a light dusting to the roots when your hair is clean and dry. Maybe even before bed the night after you wash. It absorbs the oil as it's produced. Transforms it from just a reactive fix into a genuine oil management tool. Helps keep things feeling fresher for longer.
Proactive dry shampoo. I like that. Okay, so beyond the techniques, let's talk active ingredients. These can make a big difference, right? But first, you need to know what you're fighting. Is it just the oiliness and maybe some buildup? Or is it that full-blown seborrheic dermatitis, the oil, plus the itching and flaking?
Exactly. That distinction is key for choosing the right weapon. If it's primarily just oiliness and maybe some product buildup making things feel heavy, then keratolytic agents are great. Like salicylic acid. It basically works by dissolving the glue between dead skin cells, helps exfoliate the scalp, keeps follicles clear. You'll find it in medicated shampoos, usually something you'd use maybe 2-3 times a week.
Okay, salicylic acid for buildup. But if you do have the flaking, the itching, the redness along with the oil, that signals seborrheic dermatitis. And that means you need antifungal power, right? Ingredients like ketoconazole, pyrithione zinc, or selenium sulfide.
Precisely. Those directly target the Malassezia yeast. That yeast loves oily environments, and it's a major contributor to the inflammation in sebderm. Ketoconazole, for instance, works by messing with the yeast's cell membrane. Now, here's a really interesting, kind of counterintuitive thing about ketoconazole specifically. You might actually notice a temporary increase in surface oil when you first start using it.
Wait, really? It makes it oilier at first.
It can seem that way, but don't panic and stop using it. It's actually a sign it's working. It's clearing out those plugs in your hair follicles, allowing trapped sebum to finally flow out freely. So yeah, things might seem a bit worse before they get better. It's a critical thing to know, so you stick with the treatment.
Wow, okay, that's good to know. Don't stop if it seems oilier initially with ketoconazole. What about older ingredients like coal tar or naturals like tea tree oil?
Yeah, coal tar is an older one. Works by slowing down how fast your skin cells turn over. Can be effective, though the smell isn't for everyone. Tea tree oil is popular, definitely has antiseptic and anti-inflammatory properties. Worth a try for some, but just be aware it can cause allergic reactions or irritation in sensitive individuals. Patch test, maybe?
Good call. And finally, ingredients to maybe be cautious about or avoid if you have an oily scalp.
Right. Sulfates, like sodium lauryl sulfate or sodium lauryl sulfate. They're strong detergents, great at cutting grease, yes, but for some people they're too stripping. They trigger that rebound oil production we talked about. So sulfate-free might be better if you find that happening. Silicones, they give hair that smooth, slippery feel, but they can build up on the scalp over time, attract dirt, trap sebum. Not ideal. And generally, heavy oils and butters in shampoos or conditioners. Things like shea butter, coconut oil applied to the scalp. Usually too heavy, too occlusive for an already oily situation. Knowing what to look out for helps you read those labels.
Okay, makes sense. We've covered biology, washing techniques, active ingredients. But a truly complete approach goes beyond just the bottle, right? Internal factors matter too.
Absolutely. There's growing evidence for what people are calling the gut-skin-scalp connection. Basically, systemic inflammation may be starting in your gut from an imbalanced microbiome or driven by a pro-inflammatory diet can directly impact your skin, and that includes your scalp. So it raises that important question, could what you're eating actually be making your scalp oilier?
That's fascinating. So, digging into diet, what are the main things to watch out for and what might help?
Well, foods that cause big blood sugar spikes are a key one. Think sugary drinks, refined carbs like white bread, pasta, pastries. These trigger a surge in insulin, and elevated insulin can actually stimulate androgen production.
Ah, and androgens stimulate the sebaceous glands. It connects back.
Exactly, so more sebum. Some evidence also points towards dairy products potentially increasing sebum for some individuals. Might be worth experimenting with reducing it.
Okay, so things to maybe reduce. What about things to increase? Nutrients that could help.
Yes, definitely. Zinc is important. It plays a role in regulating sebum production. You find it in things like oysters, meat, seeds, nuts. B vitamins, especially B6 and biotin, are crucial cofactors for overall scalp health, found in lots of foods, eggs, legumes, leafy greens, and omega-3 fatty acids. These are powerful anti-inflammatories found in fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, also flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts. They can help modulate that inflammation we see in conditions like seborrheic dermatitis. Think of diet not as a cure-all, but as a really powerful modulator, something that can help tip the balance in your favor.
Right, a modulator. I like that framing. And what about lifestyle? Stress and sleep, they always come up. How do they tie into scalp oiliness?
Directly. Chronic stress ramps up your cortisol levels, and cortisol has been directly linked to increased activity in those sebaceous glands. So yeah, that's why your scalp might feel greasier during really stressful weeks at work or major life events. It's a real physiological response.
Okay, stress is a trigger. And sleep.
Lack of quality sleep messes with your body's natural hormone regulation, including the hormones that influence sebum. Aiming for that sweet spot, usually 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night, helps your whole system rebalance, and that can definitely influence sebum production too.
Okay, so diet, stress, sleep, all part of the bigger picture. Now, besides the daily washing and medicated shampoos, are there other things like treatments you can do at home periodically? Adjunctive therapies?
Yeah, there are some great ones. Clay masks are fantastic for oily scalps. Things like bentonite clay or kaolin clay.
How do those actually work?
Well, what's cool, especially about bentonite clay, is it carries a strong negative electrical charge. And impurities like excess sebum, product residue, they tend to be positively charged. So the clay acts like a magnet, attracting and binding to that gunk, effectively pulling it out as the mask dries. It's a great deep cleanse. Just a little tip. Don't mix clay masks in metal bowls or with metal spoons. The metal can react with the clay and reduce its effectiveness. Use glass or plastic.
Good tip. Avoid metal with clay. What about apple cider vinegar rinses? Hear a lot about those too.
ACV rinses are another really useful tool. Your scalp naturally has an acidic pH, sort of a protective acid mantle. Lots of hair products, especially some shampoos, can be more alkaline, and that disrupts this natural balance. ACV contains acetic acid, which helps restore that optimal acidic pH. This also helps smooth the hair cuticle, making hair look shinier. And it acts as a great clarifying agent, cutting through stubborn buildup that even shampoo might miss sometimes.
How do you use it? Straight from the bottle.
Oh, definitely not. Way too strong. You need to dilute it. A good starting point is usually 1 part ACV to about 3 to 5 parts water. You pour it over your scalp after shampooing and conditioning. Let it sit for a minute or two, then rinse it out.
Okay, diluted ACV. Got it. Any other natural remedies worth mentioning? Aloe? Witch hazel?
Yeah, things like aloe vera can be very soothing, especially if there's irritation. Witch hazel is a natural astringent, so it can help temporarily tighten pores and reduce surface oiliness. And there's some research, though maybe less robust, suggesting green tea extracts used topically might help reduce sebum production over time. These kinds of remedies are often best at targeting the symptoms or consequences of oiliness, the irritation, the surface grease. They're excellent complements for maintenance and soothing things down.
Okay, great adjuncts. Now let's flip it. As people start putting together their plan, what are the common mistakes, the pitfalls that actually make things worse?
Oh, there are definitely a few big ones. Probably the most common is that vicious cycle of harsh cleansing we touched on earlier. People feel greasy, so they reach for the strongest, most stripping shampoo they can find, often sulfate-based, and they scrub really hard, maybe use super hot water trying to squeaky clean.
Right, trying to obliterate the oil.
Exactly. But all that does is strip away all the natural oils, disrupts the scalp barrier. And the sebaceous glands, they panic. They think, whoa, emergency, we're too dry. And they go into overdrive to compensate. Result, rebound oiliness. Your scalp ends up even greasier a few hours later, and you're trapped in this cycle. It completely undermines everything else you might be doing right.
That makes total sense. The harsh cleansing cycle is a mistake. #1. What else?
Another one, maybe more subtle, is unclean tools and linens. Think about your hairbrush, your combs, even your pillowcase. They collect sebum, dead skin cells, bacteria, product residue.
Ew, yeah.
Right. If you're not cleaning them regularly, every time you brush your hair or lay your head down, you're just redepositing all that stuff back onto your clean scalp and hair.
Kind of defeats the purpose of washing. So how often should you clean them?
Good question. Brushes and combs, ideally give them a proper clean at least once a week. Remove the hair, soak them in warm water with a bit of gentle shampoo or soap. Pillowcases, even more often if you can swing it. At least twice a week, maybe even every other night if your scalp is very oily or prone to breakouts. Fresh surface makes a difference.
Okay, clean tools, clean pillowcases. Anything else? What about just touching your hair or scalp?
Yeah, that's the last big one. Excessive physical agitation, constantly running your hands through your hair, scratching your scalp, even gently. That physical stimulation can actually signal the sebaceous glands to produce more oil. It's often a subconscious habit, but being mindful and trying to minimize it can genuinely help reduce overall greasiness.
All right, avoid harsh washing, keep tools clean, hands off. Good rules of thumb. Now, while all these tips and routines can make a massive difference for many people, there are times when it's just not enough, right? When do you need to say, okay, time to bring in the professionals? What are the red flags for seeing a dermatologist?
Absolutely. Professional help is key when things aren't resolving or seem severe. So, red flag, #1. You've been consistently using appropriate over-the-counter medicated shampoos like the ketoconazole, salicylic acid, or zinc pyrithione ones for several weeks, maybe 4-6 weeks, and you're just not seeing significant improvement. Red flag, #2. Severe symptoms. We're talking intense, persistent itching that disrupts your day or sleep, prominent widespread redness, significant visible inflammation, or really thick, yellowish, crusty scales.
Okay, lack of response to OTC or severe symptoms?
Exactly. Also, if you notice any associated hair loss or significant thinning along with the scalp issues, while oily scalp itself doesn't directly cause permanent hair loss typically, the associated inflammation of severe subderm can sometimes contribute to temporary shedding, and a dermatologist needs to evaluate that. They can rule out other causes of hair loss too.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Wait, you go to the dermatologist, what can they offer that you can't get over the counter?
Well, first, a definitive diagnosis. They can confirm it's seborrheic dermatitis and not something else that might look similar, like psoriasis or a fungal infection, or even contact dermatitis from a product allergy. Then they have access to prescription strength treatments. For acute flare-ups with a lot of inflammation and itching, they might prescribe a short course of a topical corticosteroid lotion or solution to quickly calm things down. For longer-term management, especially if steroids aren't ideal, there are prescription non-steroidal options like calcineurin inhibitors, creams like pimecrolimus or tacrolimus, which help control the inflammation without steroid side effects.
Stronger topicals, basically.
Stronger topicals, yes, and stronger antifungals too. Prescription strength, ketoconazole, like 2%, or cyclopropyrox shampoos. And in really severe, widespread, or resistant cases of seborrheic dermatitis, they might even consider oral antifungal medications for a period. And in very, very rare instances, for extremely severe, unrelenting sebaceous gland hyperactivity that isn't responding to anything else, they might discuss highly specialized treatments that modulate hormones systemically, like very low-dose isotretinoin Accutane, but that's usually a last resort due to potential side effects. Point is, seeing a professional opens up a whole new level of diagnostic clarity and treatment options when the standard stuff isn't cutting it. It's a proactive step.
Okay, that's really helpful to know when to escalate. So let's try to pull all this amazing information together. We've talked biology, washing, ingredients, diet, lifestyle, pitfalls, professional help. How do we synthesize this into a practical plan someone can actually follow? Maybe like a tiered approach.
Yeah, a tiered protocol makes a lot of sense. People can start where they think they fit and adjust as needed. So let's say tier 1. Foundational daily management. This is for mild to maybe moderate oiliness, perhaps without significant flaking or itching. This is your baseline good habits. Wash daily or every other day, gentle, pH balanced, maybe sulfate-free shampoo. Use that double shampoo technique. Condition only the mid-lengths and ends, lightweight conditioner. Use dry shampoo proactively, keep those tools clean, change pillowcases often, minimize touching your scalp, and really pay attention to those internal factors. Aim to reduce high glycemic foods, boost omega-3s and maybe zinc intake, prioritize that 7-9 hours of sleep, find ways to manage stress. That's the foundation.
Okay, tier 1 is the solid base. What if that's not quite enough, or if there's some persistent oiliness or maybe mild flaking starting?
Then you move to tier 2, incorporating medicated treatments. You keep doing everything from tier 1. Those foundational habits are still crucial. But now you introduce a specific medicated shampoo 2 or 3 times a week. If it's mostly oiliness and buildup, maybe try one with salicylic acid. If you have some mild flaking or itching starting, try pyrithione zinc, or maybe selenium sulfide. Crucially, when you use these, leave the lather on your scalp for a few minutes. Check the bottle, usually 3 to 5 minutes before rinsing. Let the active ingredient work, and maybe add in a weekly deep cleansing treatment, like one of those clay masks we talked about, or an apple cider vinegar rinse, just to help keep buildup under control.
Got it. Tier 2 adds targeted treatment a few times a week. Now, what about for the more challenging cases? Moderate to severe seborrheic dermatitis, the persistent oil, flakes, and itching.
Okay, that's tier 3, long-term strategy for chronic conditions. Again, you maintain those tier 1 foundational habits, can't slack on those, but now your primary medicated shampoo should likely be 1% ketoconazole, available over the counter in many places. Use it maybe twice a week initially for, say, 2 to 4 weeks to really get things under control. Make sure to leave it on for the recommended time. Then once things improve, you can often dial back to using it just once a week, or maybe even once every 2 weeks for maintenance to keep that Malassezia yeast in check. Now, the important part here, if you've been diligently following this tier 3 regimen, good daily habits plus regular ketoconazole use for a solid 4 to 6 weeks, and you're still not seeing significant improvement in the oil, flakes, and itch, that's the clear signal it's time to book that appointment with a dermatologist. They'll take it from there with prescription options.
Okay, tier 1 foundation, tier 2 adds OTC actives, tier 3 focuses on ketoconazole and sets the trigger for seeing a doc. That's a really clear framework. So wrapping this all up, what's the main takeaway here for someone struggling with an oily scalp?
I think the biggest takeaway is that mastering your oily scalp isn't about finding one single magic bullet. There's no miracle cure. It's really about understanding the why, those biological drivers, the hormones, the genetics, the yeast, and then consistently implementing a multifaceted strategy, combining the right washing techniques, the right targeted ingredients for your specific issue, oil versus sebderm, and supporting it all with those smart lifestyle and dietary choices that has to be tailored to you.
Right. It's about consistency and a holistic approach, not just focusing on the shampoo.
Exactly. The power truly lies in that consistency. And in recognizing that your scalp health isn't isolated, it's connected to your overall well-being, your diet, your stress, your sleep. They all play a role. But by combining these different elements, smart hygiene, targeted actives, supportive lifestyle, you really can transform your scalp. Move it from being a constant source of frustration to something balanced and healthy.
That's empowering. This knowledge gives you the tools to move beyond just fighting it and actually build a sustainable plan for lasting control. We really hope this deep dive has given you a much clearer path forward.
And maybe, just maybe, it leaves you with a little something to think about. If something as seemingly straightforward as how much oil your scalp produces is so intricately tied into your genetics, your hormones, what you eat, how stressed you are, what other seemingly isolated issues in your body might actually be part of a much larger interconnected system, a system that maybe you have more influence over than you think?
Food for thought indeed. Until next time, keep digging, keep learning, and keep getting better informed.